Okay. I'm going to, I just want to make sure this is getting recorded properly. Okay, so I thought it was, I'll just continue with the remaining sections of completing the discussion we were having on Thursday with the selected list. So where let me open up the controller for the controller method was, since we have put everything in department, so it is in department controller. We open that up, manual department controller. Okay, this was the selected list. So we had initially populated, and then we had the result where it sort of has the shopping cart analogy. So if I were to run this, okay, now I'll go into manual department selected list, and if I choose a department, choose 2 courses, and those selected courses come in here, and then I select another department, accounting, and if I select both, they both get added in here. And we were discussing last time that this is the concept of applying a session. And of course, if you want to, if you want to sort this result here it is actually getting organized by department, so that may not necessarily be bad, because if the selections are being made by that, you could also organize it potentially, I guess, by course name, or even alphabetically by department maybe. So anyway, so that those options are there for you. But what we wanted to proceed next was to add a remove button. So if you again go back to the analogy of the shopping cart, if somebody keeps putting in items, they might also wish to remove items that they don't need or have accidentally added. So we look at that functionality, and then finally submitting the selections to do something with it. In this case, with the selected courses, they might just be adding it to offer courses or some such thing, the courses that need to be offered for this set of courses that have been selected by a department chair or an advisor and so on. So we will see how we'll not do something, but I'll basically say, okay, we'll set this link, send it to a method, and then if we have access to all these objects, how do we get access to them? That part of it I'll show. So there'll be the 2 main methods. One is to remove an individual selected course from the session, from the conceptual shopping cart. The second is sending the entire shopping cart for doing something with it. Okay, so I will okay. So let's see. I'm going to first add the remove option. So I'll go to the view, and in the view I'll say, well, it's going to be for each course here. So I'm going to add a cell, and that particular cell, I'll just say I'm going to set up a button in that cell. So I'm going to, this is something we have done previously as well. So I'll just say, I guess it's a little cleaner if I actually separate this. Okay, this is the anchor. I'm going to set up a button here. Let's say button primary. This is what you've done on other occasions. ASP action. Let's say remove course. Okay. And then I need to, if it's a different controller, I need to provide ASP controller, but in this case it's the same controller, so I wouldn't need to do that. I want to give a route ID. Well, the ID is whatever the value I want to send, and the value I want to send to remove would be the course ID. So I'll just call it route course ID. It's equal to whatever that particular course's course ID is. So I have to say at each course dot course ID. I'll just use remove as the name of the link. Okay. So now I have to create a method called remove course in the controller. Okay, so if I went back and refreshed this, selected list result. Okay, maybe I'm not having the application run. I closed it, I guess. See. Okay, I'm just going to let me just run it to show what's happening, because we just added the link. Well, actually, one other thing I should do here. Okay, so this is selected list. If I select something, I want to set the option to delete, to remove. And you can see that it's not coming, the table header is not very clean. So you just have to create another header without any text for the header. So if I did this, see if it shows up here. Okay, right here you can see that it's now an entire table. Now if I click on this, I want it to go to the method that handles the removing of the course. Okay, how do we go through that process? Just go to the controller. Some of it is going to be similar to what we did here, but others obviously would be different. I'll just create this method. Right below here. It's a shorter method, so maybe okay. That's the public action result. Remove course. It's the input parameter of course ID. Okay. Now, what I need to do, well, at the bottom, I'll just say return. Well, it's basically this over here. It's the same return view, selected course list. Okay, with that one course that's been removed. And I also want this view data because I want this for the drop down of the departments. Okay. And as far as this selected course list, it is the where is it? It is going to be right here. This is the list, right? Well, there's an integer list, and there is this list of course objects. So I'll just put that in here so that we don't have the compiler selecting, they're complaining about select list. Okay. Now, what we need to do obviously is remove that one course ID. And that is fairly simple to do. I'll first get the list from the session. Remember how we were getting the list from the session, the list of integers. So, list of all selected courses. We go to the session and get that selected list of courses. So I'm going to get that. I'm just going to, from the session, the get method in the session gets me the list of all integers. Remember, this is the course IDs, just the course IDs. So the list of course IDs. And then we go in and get the entire actual course objects. But in this course ID, this particular course ID has to be removed from this list. And the way we could do it is relatively simple. All selected courses dot remove, and remove that one course ID. Okay, I'm sorry, not course, but course ID. And so this list is going to be less, this entire list is going to be less by 1 from removing that. Now, we just have to go through this loop, add it to the list like we did previously. So fill out the actual course list here, right? This list has to be filled out with the actual objects, and that's what we are doing. We're getting the course objects and adding it, sending it over here, okay, to display. Okay, so it's fairly simple in that we go to the session, remove the course ID that's been selected, and then go through the list of those IDs to populate this actual course list, send it back to the selected list view. Okay, so it is fairly straightforward. Again, from the session, you get all these selected courses, remove the one course ID that the user wants to remove from the shopping cart, and then populate the actual course objects based on the IDs, then send it to the view. So let's see what happens with this. Okay, already had something running. Close this. Okay. Okay. Let's say I select these two, and then I go to accounting and select both. Okay. And now remember that if I were to go back to MIS, and if I selected, let's say, Advanced IT and Database Management, so Advanced IT is getting repeated, so remember that that should not come in again. Okay, so we set up the logic whereby if there was a repetition, we basically removed it from, well, we didn't add it and not remove it. So now if I want to remove one of these, let's say I didn't want intro to accounting, so you call the remove method, reduce it by 1 and bring it back here. Okay. So that, as I said, it is sort of, once you understand the addition, which is a much more, I think, much more complex. Well, one of the things that I did forget to do, which let's see if anyone can figure out. So when I remove it from here, one thing that I need to do is I would have to, this reduced set of course IDs. Remember, this session is holding the course IDs. I removed this, but I didn't remove it from the session. So one step that I need to do, which I forgot to do, is to set this HTTP context.session.set selected courses, and it should have all selected courses. So now what goes into the session memory space is the list of course IDs reduced by this. Otherwise, the session would contain all of the original, and then so if the user kept adding something more, well, the list that comes out will include the ones that they have previously tried to get rid of. So those kinds of small additional logical pieces you have to be sort of conscious of and say, okay, these are what designer developers call use case scenarios. So you cannot just say, okay, so what happens just with one pass, but what happens afterwards if the shopping cart has to again be accessed? You have to make sure that the session is now updated. Okay, so now let's go to the last part, which is to actually do something. So maybe I should just call this do something on the selected list or save selections, or it can be any kind of operation. So I can call it send selections, I guess. So I'll call this send save selections. Save. With the shopping cart, I guess the analogy is to complete or save the cart or place the order. So I'm just trying to think of what would be an appropriate term here. Okay, I'll just call it save selections. Okay, and I'm going to do it. It is done for the entire set of courses, so not just one course. Just going to copy this. Okay, so it has to be outside of the outside the table. Just trying to think if right here should be fine. So instead of remove course, it is, I'll just say save selections. There isn't going to be any route ID or anything like that. In fact, we'll just go to that particular controller method, and I'll just say save selections. Okay. So when the user clicks on this, I'm just saying save because it's sort of the or place order. It's the equivalent of, if you're thinking of the shopping cart analogy. But what we could do any kind of action. Department chair selects all the courses, or the advisor selects courses to which there has to be some course offering that particular semester, or instructors assigned, or some such action. Okay, so let's try to set up the controller here. I called it Save Selections. So I'll just go ahead and do the same thing. Public action, public action result, save selections. There isn't anything being sent in, no course ID or anything. Okay. Now I want to return the same view. Okay. And I'm going to keep this drop-down list. So I'll keep that going. The only difference this time is I won't have a selected course list to return back to the view. Instead, what I'm going to have here are, the first thing is, I'm going to do exactly what I did with remove. I'm going to go into the session and retrieve all the course IDs that the user has been selecting. Okay, that's the first step. And the second step is going to be, I don't want to, in this case, I want to send it somewhere, do something with it. So whatever that do something is. So the simple thing would be to set up this. So I can create a list, and so this is a list of selected objects. Now I can use that list to process. I could, if I'm saving it, so if it was something that I'm saving into some other table, then I would use some, so I could say, instead of doing this, I could say database dot some other table like course changes or something. I could go in there and do something with it. So I could do many different things. For now, I'll just keep it as this. Okay, so I'm doing, so do something with the list, do something with entire list. This is this entire, and this selected course list. Or if you're inside the loop, you could say do something with each selected course object. So you can go either direction with whatever functionality you want to have. And then the next thing is, because the user has said, now I've done all my selection, I've added, removed, now do whatever needs to be done. At this point, the session has to get cleared. So what I'll do is http context dot session dot clear. Okay, so this clears up everything that is there in this list. So when we return to a selected list, we should have 0 in our selection. Okay, so let's go and try this out. I think I have something running, so I should close out of this. Okay. Okay, I got these. So you can see all the, I can do ads that get added on. If I try to add something that's already there, the one that is there doesn't get added. I could remove a course, and I could go save selections. When I save selections, you can see that it comes back, clears up the session, so no course is selected. By the way, this, if you don't want this to appear on the same line, the simplest thing to do, it's not very elegant, but the simplest thing to prevent it from appearing on the same line would be to have a line break, BR. Okay. And if I save it, and if I sort of, if I go here, yes, so at this point, if I went back and said, selected list, it should basically move it to the next line. Okay. But I hope you understand what happened when the session was cleared. I just send this over, and then if I say save selections, or I'll go through the selecting accounting courses. Okay. Now if I said save selections, it's doing whatever action, whether actually saving it to the database or connecting it to some other course objects or whatever else. Now if I said that, after it did that operation, you're saying, okay, we want to clear out, again, think of the shopping cart. After the user places the order, you don't want to keep track of what he or she had selected for this cart. So this is now entirely done, and they are starting over and with a new order, a new set of options. Okay, so hopefully that entire cycle makes sense, and that you try to implement that on your project. So I'll stop with that.